The first Staley was exceptional.
Okay, well, introduce the show there, Ron. You're live for Inside Blitz Week 13. Go ahead, Ron. Take it away.
Take it away. We're at the stretch run with the Inside Blitz. We'll mix in a little bit of NCAA football because it's a tremendous championship weekend where we have no idea who the final four teams are going to be. But first, we have a lot of quarterback talk. We have sound and audio, some interesting stuff from Ted. What you got to say today, Ted? How's everything going?
Well, I'm breathing, which is a good start to every day, and I'm wearing my Wisconsin shirt just for the college talk, even though it's hockey, but whatever, that's close enough. Hey, looking forward to several games this week. Everybody's talking about the San Francisco-Philly game, but there's some other stuff, and I want to rehash a little bit first last night, what we saw in that game. I'm wondering your guys' thoughts on Dallas because they could have easily lost that game to a Geno Smith who did nothing in the second half for the most part. And I thought Seattle outplayed them, but they didn't win because they lost their running back in the second half, which hurt a lot. Because that's what P.Carroll does is he runs the plays and on the ground. And I think it was a whole different story when they brought in the backups and they lost a guard as well. So your thoughts on the game last night?
Well, I think, Seattle, I think was good enough to play the way they did last night and to play that tightly with Dallas in Dallas. And just over the recent, 4 or 5 weeks, prior, something was wrong with them. I mean, just with a steady decline. That's why we bet them to not make the playoffs before they went on this losing streak. You could see the chinks in the armor, so to speak, coming. So it's no surprise to me that they could play that way, but it seemed like that might have been in their past coming into last night's game. So it's a little surprising, but you kind of had to think Dallas was going to not cover the spread. My model said that they were good enough, but I wasn't trusting it and, just played them on the money line.
And I don't think it was just a look ahead thing for Dallas as well. I just think that they sort of play to the teams that they face, and they've got an unbelievable home winning streak now. But this is the first time they've beaten a winning team all year long. So it still puts a little bit of a doubt in my mind.
Seattle's not a winning team. They're 500.
Not anymore.
So they still have not beaten a team over 500.
Yeah, that was one of my thoughts as well. To me, the game played out amazingly, almost exactly as I expected. Seattle was a better opponent than Dallas has been playing recently. Their own divisional opponents, the Giants, Washington, they don't match up at all. The really only problem with Seattle is they're young. They got one of their tackles back, which is really helpful. There was talk that Geno was more confident, that he was healthier for this game. So I expected that offense to deliver. And with the rookie from Ohio State incorporated into the offensive game plan, they have 3 really good wide receiver weapons. And yeah, they were down Walker at running back to begin with, but it shows you could still score points without a viable running back, especially one they're not going to use in the passing game anyway. Dallas, they have really incorporated finally Brandon Cooks into the offense. So he's the clear number 2 ahead of Michael Gallup now. And we know Dallas is tremendously dangerous offensively. That was Seattle's challenge all the way through. And you both are right. Seattle could have won the game. It was a toss-up type of game. The matchup indicators said to me that 8.5, 9 points or even more was just too high. In the end, we got what we thought we would get. Seattle's under a brutal schedule right now, and they may get out from under it. Eventually, I plan to hedge back with them making the playoffs if all goes well. The reason I would do that, Cris and Ted, is because the competition for the 7th playoff spot is between a lot of teams that are not as good as Seattle. They just have easier schedules.
Yeah. Well, one of my issues with Seattle, though, is penalties. They lead the league in penalties, and not good ones either. And, I had a cut from P.Carroll. We don't have to go over that. But at the same time, I think it's a concern with that team, and then how Seattle looks at the officiating, because now they're starting to point fingers saying this is being over officiated. That they never know it's inconsistent. They never know what to expect. And I don't know if P.Carroll's been necessarily a whiner over his career, but he's not liking what he's seeing right now.
Just don't see the way this is going. It's going in the right direction. I mean, we're all waiting to see, is it a call? I mean, that's what we're waiting for. See, did the official make a call here? Oh, he didn't call it. Oh, he did call it. And there's latitude that we need to give these guys. They know the game. They know how to make these calls, but they can't call everything when there's a little this is into that, and particularly when it doesn't affect the play. So, I'll spend some time on this in the off season for sure. And I'm not saying I got all the answers either. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I think the game needs to be adjusted here somewhat. Yes. There's too much emphasis on those situations. I just don't see the way this.
There you go. And what are your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I think he's right. It's getting ridiculous. I'm sick of my timeline filled up with the meme with all the yellow flags on the field, because it's every primetime game, and I don't know what you do about it. Because we all know that there's probably penalties on every single game, and he raises the good point of, well, what are meaningful and what are tolerable, and what is affecting the play that actually happened. And, this game has become faster, which makes it more difficult. I went down a YouTube hole last night when I couldn't sleep, and I watched a replay of like an early 70s Monday Night Football game. It was the first Monday Night Football game in Denver. And it was Ken Stabler taking over for Daryl LaMonica. And boy, is the game changed.
Oh, it's not even, you shouldn't even call it football anymore.
I mean, geez, it's barely recognizable. It's just, there's no clock, there's no score. I mean, there's no urgency on the players. It's like, it looks exactly like how you used to watch high school football from the stands. And it was just hilarious. I don't know, change is good in a lot of ways and change is bad in a lot of ways. And we know that the officials use replay as a crutch too much. And we know for a fact by referee statistics that certain referees call certain things at much higher rates, or are favorable to home teams or favorable to scoring, and all kinds of things. So those are, issues that should be addressed for sure. But as a Lions fan, we've gotten so many bad calls throughout the years. We know what it's like to be on the bad side of the calls.
Oh, that's the reason you guys haven't won a damn division in 30
years.
But
I'm not going to go that route, but I understand, that with high definition TV and all these replays, that these catches are not catches, or they barely get the arm on somebody. Those things are scrutinized left, right, and center much more than before. But there are correctable things that P.Carroll and other coaches in the league can do. Stop lining up offsides. Yeah, Dallas is famous for that. Kansas City is famous for that. Seattle. I mean, just stop that. Look where the ball is and put your foot a little bit behind.
Not that tough.
Yeah. I mean, there are correctable things. And rookie cornerbacks in this NFL are, when they're out on an island and when everybody wants offense, you're just going to get more penalties in today's football, because they are grabby, because they're learning technique. College game pass defense is different than the NFL game pass defense. It's just a fact of life.
Yeah, but some of those late calls, especially the one where you said the grab, the reach out on the PI where he barely touched him, you cannot be calling that penalty, specifically in the fourth quarter. I mean, come on, what are you doing? And maybe there should be a replay on those types. Maybe in the fourth quarter, only because we don't want to make the game go on forever. but just say, hey, look, let's get a second look at this thing. It's too important.
I think the key is consistency.
Yeah,
Call whatever you're calling consistent, and I think that's what he was referencing.
Yeah, no doubt.
I can't watch these games. They are just so frustrating because the refereeing is getting to become way too much of the frustration, and it works both ways. I have found myself frustrated that a call goes in the team I'm rooting for's favor, because now I got to worry. That's an awful call. Now I got to wait for the makeup call that's going to go against me, and it's going to be at a worse time. All that stuff starts to play.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's not a big topic for me. I understand the frustration. Everybody gets burned by a penalty here and there and whatever. I will say in last night's game, they probably set the tone for consistency early on when they were calling so many penalties. You just had to assume the rest of the game they would continue to call penalties.
Yeah. Do they do it only because Dallas and Seattle are the two highest penalized teams in the whole league anyway, right?
Again, some things are correctable, and both teams have things to correct.
Well, why does it seem to be these Dallas primetime games? I mean, don't forget that Thursday game last year, Thanksgiving, with the Raiders, where they came 2 penalties short of the all-time record. I don't understand why they have to it's these primetime games that get out of hand. I'd like to see some data on what the flag rate is on daytime versus primetime games.
One more thing on last night's game, and then we'll move on. I am so impressed with this Jackson Smith and Jigba. He looked fantastic. That was his coming out game. It was his all-time best, in his rookie season, 7 catches. But the way he got open and the way he ran his routes and caught the ball, this guy looks like really something special for a long time to come.
See, this is the draft report and so on. 2021, he had a fantastic year. Last year, hamstring injuries and other injuries, you didn't get to see him all the way through. And even the beginning of this year, there were some injuries that slowed his development. But basically, he was brought in because they think they're going to lose DK Metcalf down the road because they're not going to be able to pay him as much as they need to. Or Tyler Lockett might slow down at some point. He is expected to be a 1 or a 2 down the road.
He will
be. And it was, again, a testament to the fact that the last 2 years, Seattle has completely flipped how they draft players. And they've had an amazing 2-year run. And like you said, Ted, he fits perfectly.
Yeah, now they got to figure out how to draft a quarterback to get him the ball.
Well, that's the next step. Right now, you're using Band-Aid quarterbacks. And Geno Smith is a serviceable quarterback. He is a quarterback who can get somebody into the playoffs. There's no question about it. But he needs the offensive line to grow in terms of years of experience and in terms of health. And he needs the running back. He needs people around him. And he has a lot of that because of the draft.
Yeah, he had no time to throw last night, so I'll give him the slight benefit of the doubt out there. It's like every time he went back, he had to jump back into the pocket and get rid of that immediately. So anyway, let's move on. Let's talk Chargers-Patriots, not because of the Patriots, but because the Chargers somehow still have their head coach, my favorite guy in the league, Brandon Staley. How he has lasted this long. I got to give the guy credit for just being Gumby. The guy's flexible as hell, and he figures out a way to keep his job. I guess it helps that his owner doesn't want to spend more than $3 an hour to replace him. So he might be there for the rest of his life because of that. But it's something about the Chargers. They lost 5 out of 7. They're losing bad ways again. They're finding ways to lose. And when you look at their roster, they're still one of the best rosters in the league. And they're probably not going to make the playoffs. And that means Brandon Staley's probably going to be gone. But after the Week 11 loss, Brandon Staley went off with the media, and I understand where he's coming from, but boy, is he dead wrong on the state of the team. Cris.
I'm not here to talk to the fan base. I'm here to talk to my players, the locker room. I know that we give ourselves a chance to win every single week with the game plans that we have, okay? And we have done it here. You guys act like we've never played good defense. That's not the truth. That's not the truth. You act like we haven't made any improvements. Today, in the run game, we played outstanding. We're rushing the quarterback well. What we got to do a better job of is in the passing game. And that's where our full attention is, and it's where it will continue to be. There were a lot of other things that caused us to lose today. It certainly wasn't our defense. It was the way we played as a team. We didn't play well enough on the red zone on offense. We dropped too many passes. Okay, we gave up a few killer sacks. Okay, we did this as a team. Stop making it about one unit, because that's not what happened out there today. Our team lost, and I am fully responsible for it, and I take full responsibility. But we lost as a team today, and that's the storyline. I'm not here to talk to...
Well, that's the storyline, except for a couple of things. First of all, that will happen to be a question about the defense, and I totally get where he's coming from and why he responded that way, right or wrong. But how about his offense, okay? We brought this up a few weeks ago. Kellen Moore was supposed to go in there and change the culture on offense, and it's the same crap. Okay, Kellen Moore should have been standing there waiting to take over for a fired Brandon Staley, and now has he shown he could be a head coach? He hasn't even shown he could be a good offensive coordinator with a supposedly great quarterback and definite weapons out there. So there's a lot of question marks about that team. I'm getting sick of the Staley post-game stuff, but I had to play that one because that is a beauty. And I think it tells you the frustration, what's going on there, guys.
I think you make the perfect points there. It's the offense is certainly, if anything, not as good as it was the previous year. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no Mike Williams, too. We'll give him the benefit of
right,
that.
But he played half the year. But
right.
At the very best case scenario, they're as good as they were last year, certainly.
Yeah.
But it's obviously the guy's cracking up a little bit, understandably. He speaks out of both sides of his mouth. He blames the whole team and then blames himself, at the same time.
It's just the BS throwaway. I take blame for everything.
It's like the guy that beats his wife and says, I don't know why you make me hate you.
That's a good way of putting it.
So I listened to that clip, and I'll give you the condensed version of what I think was how Staley completely misses the point, that he has no clue what he's talking about, and he's to blame for a lot of things. I mean, this was a very bad look for him, and maybe reporters and others didn't understand why it was a bad look. First of all, in terms of running the ball, that week they ran the ball 24 total times. Last week they ran the ball 19 total times. They are not, if he likes his game plan and if he likes his run game, well, then why isn't he using it? Because you can't run the ball 43 times in 2 games and tell us you love what you're doing running the ball. Their defense allows 2 out of every 3 passes, more than 2 out of every 3 passes to be completed. They love their pass rush. They have 5 sacks in the last 2 games. That's not good, especially this year. What else can I tell you? They're -5 in turnovers. That's a double-edged thing. It's on the offense, but it's also on the defense because they're not forcing turnovers. And finally, if you want to look all the way back to management, if you think you're having trouble offensively, why don't you draft Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison? Why do you consistently ignore wide receivers with a little bit more speed and cutting ability, and you draft Quentin Johnson, who I've said repeatedly was not ready for the NFL? That's all I have.
Well, the general manager is not Staley. It's Tom Telesco. And the question mark is he really up to this task? Apparently, he's very good friends with the owner. So I don't know if he's going anywhere. It's just one of those things. It's like this team might be like a hamster on a wheel, just the same crap every year, never getting to that next level. I don't know where they're going to do it, but I don't blame it on the quarterback, who's been inconsistent. And there are times where he doesn't look as good, just throwing into traffic and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think he's a little bit on the desperate side because he's not getting the support he needs.
Yeah. They need a rewind in terms of how they draft players and how they coach players. And Staley's not the answer. Telesco is generally not the answer. They build a certain way. And certainly when Mike Williams leaves, Quentin Johnson might fill that role, but they're missing that key role. Speed matters. Do they ever watch tape of Miami or Kansas City? Because they're not seeing it offensively or defensively.
So who are they going to face this week? Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones? Probably Zappi. Maybe it doesn't matter.
I think they're doing Zappi. And for Chargers backers, there's a little bit of optimism because Keenan Allen is practicing today. I think they'd be in trouble if he's unable to go.
Yeah, they need him badly. Although he's had a couple of bad drops the last few weeks too, like not like him at all. But what do you think? It's supposed to rain a little bit, I think, in Foxborough.
What I think, I'm pretty much done talking about New England. I think they've just failed in so many ways. There's just no point. That they're so stubborn, and that's on their head coach. They're still fundamentally sound defensively, but they do the same things over and over again and expecting them to improve. And I don't know how they lost the game against the Giants, because the Giants were nothing in that game, but they found ways to turn it over 3 times in New York Giant territory. They walked the ball to a place where they thought they'd get a game-tying field goal instead of 20 teams in the league, 25 teams in the league being a little bit more aggressive. What's the point of getting a game-tying field goal attempt against a bad defense like the New York Giants? There's just no point in me handicapping New England right now.
Yeah, and they've beaten the Chargers 7 straight times, but guess what? Those are slightly different teams. Just a little.
Did you have another Staley quote you wanted to refer to?
No, we're going to skip. We're done with Staley in more ways than one. Let's go on. Let's go on to the Lions. Your Detroit Super Kitties need to turn back to the non-turnover team. That's what's killing them the last few weeks. 6 turnovers in the last 2 games for Goff, and the O-line has not been as solid as they certainly were for most of the season. So that has to be better. And at a Saints team that you never know what's going to show up, and they're on a big downward spiral right now. And Derek Carr has been really disappointing. I thought he was going to be much better than this.
You took the words right out of my mouth. You must have watched me talk earlier in the week, because the Packers defensive line manhandled the supposed number 1 offensive line in the league, which clearly they are not anymore after that performance. And the Goff turnovers has to stop. And it's going to be interesting. Olave's still in concussion protocol as of the latest information that I saw. They're going to be missing wide receivers 1, 2, and 3 this week potentially. Wow. They're missing the heart and soul of their defense with Lattimore. Carr just cannot get it done. And he's just sort of like a bobblehead doll at these conferences, kind of parroting the same stuff and never has an original thought of what's going to change, et cetera. It's a shame, because I think the Saints are a pretty darn good team, and it's got to be the 3rd year in a row where the injuries just kill them.
How many times are we going to mention their head coach, Ron?
Well, the issue really is Carr's being held back by an antiquated offense. In fact, the best use of that offense doesn't even involve Carr. It involves Taysom Hill, who's running for an exceptional yards per carry. He's catching passes. He's even throwing passes. So I don't think they know how to call an offensive game plan for a true decent NFL quarterback. And Cris is right. They're missing a lot of firepower offensively at wide receiver, which does limit them. Kamara he's kind of a shell of what he was the first 3-4 years in the league. Yes, he catches a lot of passes, but he doesn't move the chains when he catches passes. You almost applaud when they throw it to him, because anybody who catches passes for 5 yards per reception is a win for the defense. So I have a problem with a lot of these teams like New Orleans throwing behind the chains and expecting that to work.
Yeah, he's starting to look a little bit like Zeke Elliott, like the wrong side of his career here.
That would be bad. And I think he's better than that.
Yeah,
I just
should
think
be.
This is another team that needs an offensive overhaul.
Yep. Anyway, so you like the Lions minus the points because where's the offense going to come from this week for New Orleans?
I don't personally. I would lean heavily to New Orleans. When you're talking about 4 or more points, I wouldn't trust them on the road. I understand the matchup favors Goff to not get a lot of pressure on him, but New Orleans also has the best percentage pass defense in the league, and Goff is going to be he's not going to have as many open windows as he would against an Atlanta or some other defense. So, and Lattimore's loss hurts, but it's still a New Orleans defense that limits pass completions.
All right. Yeah, you know what? I don't like what I've seen out of these Lions the last couple of games. I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I think that they'll win. They should win, but we'll see what happens. I'm certainly not overly enthusiastic about. I'm just going to be happy to see them come out of there with a win. But I think they darn well should, cover and win.
Yeah. All right. How about Atlanta at the Jets? And we're only going to talk about this game because of what's going on there with the coach R.Saleh and their situation. Look, it's so ugly. You talk about an offense that is absolutely unwatchable. Aaron Rodgers is looking better in practice, and he can't even move yet than the rest of the quarterbacks. And if Rodgers comes back, good luck. I think he's insane to even try to come back with that lack of O-line. That's the reason, or one of the reasons, he got hurt in the first place. So, but what about R.Saleh? We're talking about the Zach Wilson era is rapidly coming to a close over there. He's had his chances, but I thought it was interesting how Saleh got a question about should they have had a veteran backing up Wilson and under these circumstances. And let's hear from the coach there, Cris.
Like we said, we think Zach is incredibly talented. Felt like he'd get an opportunity to sit behind Aaron and just learn if, empathetically or sympathetically. When you look at Zach, he's never really had an opportunity to watch somebody play the position. And he's had, Joe Flacco was fantastic. Mike White did some good things, but to just sit back and just watch from the ground up. And that was his opportunity with Aaron. And 4 plays in, he's back into the starting lineup. So he never really got to really sit back and kind of absorb and just get that redshirt year that you would have loved to have given him. But so you could always play the hindsight's 2020 game, but we felt like we did what was best for the organization, best for the team. And it's been an unfortunate series of events when you look at all the injuries on the O-line and just the things that have transpired since the start of the year. Have things gone exactly the way we wanted them to? No. I wouldn't look at it as a failure. I look at it more as a series of unfortunate events. But I stand strong in the belief that Zach's going to have a really good career in this league. He's got tremendous work ethic. He's gotten a lot better over the course of the last year. He definitely has the arm talent. He's only 24. He just turned 24. So he's got a positive outlook, and he just needs to continue to focus on his game and find ways to get better and continue to learn about fronts and coverages and how to play the game a little bit faster. And so I still believe he's going to have a good career.
That's to be determined, of course. Look, he has potential, but he makes so many mistakes. He sometimes looks very, very lost out there. And other times he looks like he's picked up a little bit of Aaron Rodgers. And I mentioned that early in the season. Watch him in practice, flipping the ball around a little bit and the way Aaron does it. I think he's a more confident guy than he was the previous year. And I like how he handles the room better than he did previously when he took no blame for anything. So he's learned in that respect, but he's got to have a better offensive line to even have a chance, Ron.
Okay. First of all, Ted, thanks for bringing the audio here. I think these shows and these interviews add a dimension. And I just want to repeat it to people who are listening, tell others that we have some coach tape that's really meaningful in this show. And I think we missed the point again with what he said. Zach Wilson, no, he didn't sit and watch Aaron Rodgers in 2021 or 2022, but he did sit for a variety of reasons. He has not started or played in more than 10 games in any season in his 3-year career so far. So he's had plenty of time to learn. He might have potential again. We go back to his college year, his last year in college, when due to the COVID schedule, they couldn't play any of the Power 5 teams because they were playing only their own conferences. He may have potential, but not with the Jets. If I'm the Jets, he's not with the team next year, and it would be better for him, and it would be better for the team.
Yep.
He's always going to be looking over his shoulder. They're always going to be holding him back in terms of the game plan. There's concern about the offensive coordinator. This is just not the right team for him.
Yeah.
Period.
And you know what? I'm still wondering if R.Saleh is a quality head coach. He still has not proven to me that he deserves to be here, and especially in the big city. And that's part of the problem with Wilson. I don't think Wilson fits in New York at all. I think he's more like, you send him to Minnesota or something and let him see if he can go there, that kind of thing.
The one thing I will say, and I think Saleh is going to be good. I don't think there'll be a question. That offensive line is one of the worst that we've seen. So you have to get some sort of mulligan. Some of these guys were hurt early, out of their control. One of the guys, Becton, a former first-round draft pick, can never stay healthy. That's the first thing you have to fix with young quarterbacks. We've talked about that forever. So if they had a good offensive line, I think they can be a playoff caliber team because they have the defense to compete each and every week. So let's see what they can do between now and next September with that offensive line.
Yeah, but they have no offense, though, right now. They have 10 offensive TDs in the entire year. That's impossible. You can't be that bad. And Paul Hackett's son is still there. That makes no sense whatsoever. That's all an Aaron Rodgers control freak thing. And if that continues, they're going nowhere.
One thing I'll say before Cris gets the floor here, because, I kind of promised a prop. So, let's say Breece Hall and the entire New York Jet team had 10 carries last week. 10 carries. And, you talk about putting handcuffs on Zach Wilson. That's not how you put handcuffs on Zach Wilson. Breece Hall goes wild this week. Let's just put it
there. Yeah, but is he injured? He's listed as questionable.
Questionable doesn't matter to me.
I realize, but
well, I don't know.
Is that why they haven't been going to? Are they not disclosing something more serious?
I think there is an offensive coordinator flaw.
You think?
Yeah. So Aaron Rodgers may not think so, but Sean Payton does.
Yeah, but the question of the day is, who the hell is Atlanta to be laying points on the road?
Yeah, and it's supposed to rain pretty hard in that game. So I don't know how that's going to come into play, but that should be even more Breece Hall.
Well, you got Tim Boyle, and that's the reason Atlanta's favored on the road because I know, Ted, you want to talk quarterbacks here, and we want to save time to talk to the NCAA because,
well, let's talk some quarterbacks now. Let's
talk some quarterbacks. And Tim Boyle is one of the examples of quarterbacks that should, he may be the nicest guy in the world, but based on his college resume, he shouldn't have been starting in college.
Really?
You're talking about a guy going into his senior year at Eastern Kentucky after 3 years at Connecticut that he had thrown 2 TDs or 1 TD in 3 years.
He's Aaron's buddy. That's all that matters, baby. They're doing whatever it can to kiss his ass, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
You're never going to be successful that way. Aaron's a hell of a quarterback, but he's not a general manager. But he is now.
What other quarterbacks do you want to talk about, guys?
Well, let's talk about a few of the backups and the situation that the league is in right now. You got too many key injuries. We're going to get to Kyler Murray a little bit and Justin Fields and those guys. They're really in their in the mode where they're auditioning for a job, whether it's the same team they're with or not. and their future is on the line. And I'm wondering if they are really at this caliber or not, because they show flashes, and then they show flashes of what the hell are you doing in this league? You can't make that many mistakes. And with the backups that are out there now, and this has come up over the years so many times, this should be where the best backups of all time should be in this league, and it's the absolute opposite. And I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And it seems like these quarterbacks have 2 games shelf life. I mean, look at Minnesota. They thought they had something there, after another, 2 games go by, and all of a sudden, they don't trust the guy to throw the ball, and they give him vanilla play calling where he's never going to be able to accomplish anything. And Minnesota looked, I had, a big stake in Minnesota staying close in that game. And when they fell down and needed a touchdown, I honestly didn't think they were going to be able to get that touchdown.
Right. Well, Joshua Dobbs is a great example, okay? So everybody gets excited. Remember, I think he's had 3 wins all year, hasn't he? Didn't he have only 1 win with Arizona? 1 or 2 anyway?
1.
1. Okay, so I think he has 3 wins all year. He wins 2 in a row, and now he's Joe Montana. So, people get all excited. It's like, what have you done for me 3 seconds ago? It's already old news. You got to be able to do it on a consistent basis. Minnesota's got their limitations. They still don't have their best receiver there, and Dobbs is the brightest quarterback in the entire damn league, but he's still got to figure out a way to overcome what's going on with that offense. And their structure is not great. I don't like the way they run their offense at all.
People forget that the game he won, the incredible game that he won with Minnesota, when he was barely knew where
exactly.
The locker room was.
Yeah, he didn't know the guys' names.
Was one on a 4th and more than 10-yard scramble to keep the play alive. It was not one with his arm or with the pass call or with the short passes. It was one because he brings the dimension that Kirk Cousins doesn't have, and that's the ability to run and the ability to extend plays. But you can't live by that all season long or even all game long. If they lose that game, if he doesn't scramble for the first down, we have a completely different narrative already.
So, Ron, we have discussed this over the last handful of years, how the depth of quarterbacks in the draft, not every year has been great, but there's been a few years where we said this is one of the deeper draft ever. Where are these guys now? I mean, they should at least be backups, at least quality backups, and they're not. And there's hardly any. That's
with the Lions drafted Hooker. He's finally coming off the IR. I think he's ready to go.
Remember the Josh Rosen draft?
Yeah.
The Josh Rosen draft, and then you had the USC quarterback, and he's still in the league, but none of these guys panned out to where they were supposed to be starters, not even high quality backups. It's not an easy analysis to find your next quarterback. It's crazy.
Yeah, but as much as we trust your knowledge, Ron, on quarterbacks coming out of college, you thought some of these guys were going to be good starters, and there's a lot of them aren't even in the league anymore as a decent backup. That's got to make your head spin.
Well, that's why you have to be careful when you draft a quarterback. Do you have your offensive line in place? Are you using the salary cap correctly so that you could build your team around the quarterback and have him thrive? To have a Mahomes go to Kansas City, to have a Lamar Jackson go to Baltimore, to have a Brock Purdy even go to San Francisco, you're talking about 3 teams that understand the draft, have quality GMs, even Jalen Hurts going to Howie Roseman in Philadelphia. That's the flaw in the ointment in terms of my analysis versus other people's analysis and so on. You can't make a quarterback great by having 5 New York Jet offensive linemen block for you.
Well, there's one team that got away with it. There's one team that drafted Cincinnati. Their quarterback. Yeah. That's the only team I can think of. They had nobody.
I understand that, but he was generational. I mean, he and Andrew Luck were the best 2 quarterbacks I've seen in the last 10 years. But you're right. what Joe Burrow accomplished with that offensive line, especially that early offensive line, was unimaginable.
Yep.
Well, it's got to be the worst offensive line in the history of the Super Bowl. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And to get to the Super Bowl, and we talked about it that year a ton on how Joe Burrow he did stuff that was ridiculous. And you think that there's any other quarterback in this league for the most part would have collapsed because you could not win with that bad O-line. But they got there and they almost won the whole damn thing. And I mentioned Kyler Murray. We got Arizona and Pittsburgh this week, maybe some rain there. But I'm thinking Murray has a chance in this league, but if it's all about just run first thought, that's not going to work. What do you guys think on that?
You go first.
I don't think he's a top quarterback. I think he's a barely in the league quarterback. I mean, he hasn't performed at a high level in more than 2 seasons.
3 teams have tremendously important quarterback decisions to make. Chicago with Justin Fields, the Giants with Daniel Jones, who again didn't give us a full year resume, and they needed that.
I think he got hurt on purpose. So
and the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray, and 2 of these teams are going to be drafting for sure in the top 5, maybe all 3. These are incredibly important decisions that are going to mark where the franchise is going to be in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, but isn't Prescott's contract up also? And with the season he's having, he's over 50 ask.
Prescott, I think they renewed him. I think he's not up.
Yeah, I thought they did too.
Okay.
But either way, I mean, Joe, they're going to pay him. So whatever. I mean, because that's just the way that team works for the most. They overpay guys that don't deserve the money. Like when they gave the money to Zeke Elliott, that was an absolutely ridiculous thought at the time. But forget Dallas's situation. They're not worried about that. If you're Arizona, for example, do you pick a quarterback no matter what? Or do you say, I'm in the right spot, I'm going to take this guy because he's going to be my guy, and Kyler Murray's done? Or Kyler Murray's only going to not be done because there's nobody else to replace him?
I just have a problem with Kyler Murray because in today's NFL, it's hard to go through a 17-game schedule with his stature.
Absolutely.
Availability is everything. So I draft a quarterback if I'm Arizona. I draft a quarterback if I'm the New York Giants. I might wait on a quarterback with Chicago because they've got other problems.
But why can't Kyler Murray evolve into a Lamar Jackson type where it's not a run first mentality and just run when necessary? And then is he still good enough?
I don't know. His best plays are drawn in the sandlot.
Yeah.
No video.
And that's
game.
a compliment. That's a compliment in some ways.
Oh yeah, no, he's got definite ability, but again, too many mistakes, and the run first thing, he's going to end up in the hospital more than on the field, so it doesn't do you any good. Who do you like in that game, Arizona at Pittsburgh, in the rain? 5.5? Is it
6.5 now?
Wow. Okay, went way up.
I would lean Arizona without confidence because I don't think Pittsburgh has earned the right to be over field goal favored in the NFL right now.
I understand. All right.
Yeah,
How about
Pittsburgh shows up and overperforms against the good teams, and they have a history of not showing up against the teams they're supposed to roll. So
yeah,
I think the points are valuable in that game. And Arizona off a really embarrassing loss last week. If they don't show up, it really shows quit.
Yeah. Well, how about Miami at Washington? Talking quarterbacks, and is Sam Howell good enough to be the Commanders guy moving forward? He shows some really good talent out there, and the question is, would he be even that much better if they were that much better? Because they're not very good.
New coaching staff will have to evaluate that.
Yeah, but
Ron Rivera's gone.
Yeah.
The offensive line is serviceable, not fantastic. The wide receivers are certainly fine. Logan Thomas has developed. They have a couple running backs. That's all you need in the league. Maybe one stud offensive lineman and a more creative offensive attack. Ron Rivera has lost the team, and he's not suited to take Sam Howell to the next level.
Yeah, but the problem is, so you fire him, you bring in somebody new, then they have to evaluate something that never played for them to look at the immediate future and what they're going to do in the draft. So that's sort of a big juggling act right there during the offseason.
I don't think they're at emergency quarterback status there. I think that guy's got enough talent to at least be serviceable.
I really love his arm. It is outstanding. What do you think? What's that?
I was going to say, let's talk about one more game and then shift to college, unless you got something else. And we should talk about San Francisco, Philly.
Definitely. Well,
Cris, start it off.
What do you want me to say? It's
What do you want?
Well, I'm wondering, guys.
Give us the winner. That's all.
Why is San Francisco 3 or 2.5?
San Francisco is going to win the game by 1 or 2, just to confuse everybody. Because Philly covers the spread. San Francisco wins the game. That's the only storyline that makes sense in this situation.
Okay, why is Philadelphia a 3-point home underdog in this? Do they belong to at that point the top seed in the West? And you could show the seeding situation if you'd like up there.
San Francisco is clearly my number 1 team in the NFL right now, and it's not even in question right now, especially when everybody's at full bore. Should they be 3-point favorites? According to me, not quite. But again, for most situations, I don't want to get in front of San Francisco and say I want Philly in this game. There's so many reasons to like San Francisco, and I think that's why the line is 3.
Okay. San Francisco's lost Hufanga for the year on defense, which is a really big. I mean, he's been playing great. He's been really a stellar player. So he's out for the year. Their pass rush has definitely improved with Chase Young, who underperformed in Washington, and now you put him in the mix. Nick Bosa, I think he has 5 sacks since they've acquired Young. So that's changed that's really helped in that respect. But that's going to have to be a big factor in this game. Not necessarily sacks, but certainly pressures and keep the ground game to a minimum for Philly.
You want precedent?
Yes.
The Rams, when they added Von Miller and Aaron Donald, they averaged 2 sacks a game in their last 7-8 games combined. That's what San Francisco is shooting for.
Interesting. Rain a factor in this game at all? I mean, it's supposed to rain some. I mean, your thoughts on how rain might affect this game?
I haven't seen the weather forecast personally.
I saw likely rain, but I that's all I saw. So I don't know how much.
I think both of those teams can live with that, but the Eagles have had 4 very difficult games in their rearview mirror. They've trailed at the half in all of them. They've been outgained 100 yards per game. They're vulnerable. We saw how vulnerable they are against Buffalo. Buffalo should have won that game. I don't think Hurts is going to pull off the comeback against San Francisco. I think San Francisco knows how to put teams away. When you talk about the revenge factor and them being healthy, it just lines up really nicely for San Francisco.
Yeah, I think one of the unsung stats of the last several years, Jalen Hurts has won 14 straight games against winning teams. And a lot of them the hard way. That is incredible.
It is.
It really is.
Good stat.
Yeah, I love it. So why can't he do it again this week? Should be a close game, though. I don't think there's any doubt it's the game of the week. Not the rematch, the word that is totally overused and ridiculous. The rematch of Super Bowl I, guys. Kansas City and the Packers. How could it be a rematch 100 years later. But anyway, that should be an interesting night game if Jordan Love continues on the upswing, because he's actually looked like that. Some of that potential is coming through in the last few games. Is it enough? I don't know, but they're starting to throw downfield a little bit more, which is it. That's what I want to see out of him. Can he do? If he can do that, then he could be a quarterback on that team. If he can't, it's over.
Well, he's improving. He took, the Green Bay kicked the snot out of the Lions. So you had to admire that they won the coin toss and were aggressive. They didn't defer. They took control of that game. Love looks like he's progressing week by week. As I mentioned previously, the defensive line is strong. But things are looking a little too rosy for Green Bay. I think they're going to run into a little bit of a wall here. The Raiders may have opened up that sleeping giant when they went out to that 14-0 lead and put Kansas City in a hole too early and kind of gave them the wake-up call. Because I think if the game had been close, we would have kind of seen kind of a back and forth go through the motions. But once you woke them up, it's they showed that they can score.
Yeah, well, I look at it a different angle. I don't think they woke up a sleeping giant. I think the Raiders showed up in the second half. That's part of the problem. I mean, they're just not that good. So eventually Kansas City had to be better. And they took advantage of it, and good for them. I still don't like the trust between Mahomes and his receiving core outside of Kelsey. That's still a work in progress. And the last time I checked, this is week 13, now week 3. It should be a lot better than it is now. But one thing about Mahomes, it's the lowest passer rating of his career right now. And that tells you a lot, I think, where they stand offensively. But their defense has been great. And they keep going like this. They can win it all again because they'll find different ways to win. Guys?
Ron?
Not much to add there. I think what you want to do if you're Green Bay is run on Kansas City's defense, because Kansas City's defense has generally been above expectations. Problem with Green Bay is they're banged up at running back.
Yeah, Aaron Jones did not practice up until today. I don't know.
He's out.
And he's definitely out?
Yeah.
Okay, and A.J. Dillon was limited with a groin injury. If they're both out, I don't even know how they can win in this game. I have no idea.
Situationally, I like the spot for Green Bay. Right. Personnel-wise, I hate the spot for Green Bay. So we have conflict.
And Olave did practice today, so it's possible he's in.
That's good.
Ready to switch to the NCAA?
Sure.
Yeah, guide us, Swami.
Okay, you got 2 games today. I did get a comment that I'm wearing the Washington hat, but it was mostly because I was looking for the first hat I can find for a team with the playoffs. I have about 4 of them. The Washington one came up. But I do think they're gonna play the disrespected card in this particular game. I mean, they're the undefeated team getting 9 or 10 points, depending on when you wanted to pull the trigger on this particular game. I like Bo Nix better than Michael Penix. I like Oregon's run pass balance better than Washington. But with the Pac-12 title game on the line, how many times have we seen the Pac-12 team one step away from the Final Four, whether it be USC, whether it be Utah, whether it be Oregon in the past, somehow not even coming within 10 points at the end of the game like USC last year and so on. I don't think you can automatically discount Washington, even though based on my power ratings, the line is correct.
Okay. Well, can I shed a few tears, this being the end of the Pac-12 era, which is it's unbelievable to me. And it shows you how everything is totally falling apart in college football, because it really all started with the NIL stuff, it being mismanaged and mishandled. And now it's destroying the game. It really is. And they got to figure this out. It's going to take, whatever amount of years, but it's not the same game anymore. And I think it's really sad that the Pac-12 had to just implode like this.
We'll stay off your lawn, Ted. Gee.
I won't comment because any comments I make would would incriminate me. It's a sad day for football. It really the lights are off on the West Coast.
It feels like the sharper action is on Washington just by reading the market, but I took Oregon in this game. We'll see.
How much did you laid 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I took 10 in Washington, so we will be on opposite sides in this particular game. We will not be on opposite sides like we were a week ago regarding New Mexico State. I cannot read the Liberty team that well, but I can read the New Mexico State team. I love Jerry Kill as a fighter, as a coach. Everything that they did this season, what they did last week was expected by me. Liberty has overachieved in my opinion, but I looked at the stat sheet and I'd rather get Chris's comments because I don't have individual team sheets on Liberty. Where do you see Liberty being vulnerable?
You know what? I don't know.
Wait, that's not the
I didn't
answer.
realize there was a pop quiz here.
Yeah. You got to be on your toes.
I just see, the way I mapped it out, these teams with the stats that matter to me and strength of schedule are far more similar than I would have thought for a double-digit spread. So I just don't understand how Liberty should be favored by double digits in this situation. I think Liberty is slightly better. I heard somebody on a show this morning concerned with New Mexico State's drop-off the last 3 or 4 games. They're down, a little bit in production, but I don't know what those reasons are. Liberty seemed to roll over teams more the previous years than they did this year. They won for fun a lot this year, but they really rolled in the past, and things are a little bit tighter for them this year. Would you agree, Ron?
Yeah, well, it's a different coaching staff, obviously, and they have some new personnel, and I'm concerned about their defense. It's certainly not on paper a shutdown defense. No. I like both quarterbacks, but I do like Liberty's quarterback more. And I think there's something to him that he could put some points on the board. If there's a flaw for New Mexico State is that can they keep up if Liberty's quarterback is on point in this particular game? But I do like there's enough run-pass balance for New Mexico State that I think they can penetrate on Liberty. And if they can control clock, if they can dictate on offense, they could take away some of the pizzazz of Liberty. I just think the 10.5, 11 points was a little bit too much. Would I be shocked if Liberty rolled again? Maybe not, because I've underestimated Liberty a little bit, but I really, really have a pulse on New Mexico State, and I hope that continues.
I have one comment on the game. I'm very underqualified to talk about the Liberty defense. That's for damn sure. I didn't even know they had a school there. But separate from that, if your name is Coach Kill, you better be a damn fighter. That's all I can say.
He's overcome so many health reasons, but he's built programs. And I mean, he is one of the best coaches. You can talk to people who in the know in college football. Let's talk about some Power 5 games. Alabama has a chance to wreak havoc in the BCS thing. So my question to you guys is, if Alabama beats Georgia, do you think they deserve to be in the Final Four?
Well, I'm not following it as closely as you guys are, so I'm going to hold back on an opinion there. But all I can say is that Coach Saban for sure thinks they do, and isn't that all that matters? Because he is the God. It's whatever he says goes.
I don't want to comment on who's supposed to go where, because they changed the criteria. To me, I can't make sense out of what the criteria is. You know what I mean? It's sort of like deciding who the MVP is. Is it the most valuable player or the best player? Is it, does Florida State get in with a backup quarterback? Is it the best teams or the most deserving teams? And I don't know specifically what that criteria is, but I like Alabama in this game. And every indication that I have been able to see indicates that that's the right side in this game. What about you, Ron?
Well,
just on the market, this point spread bouncing around. Just looking.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this game. I would lean Alabama for the same reason I like Kentucky over Louisville. I liked, for a month and a half, I liked Auburn against Alabama, is because in some ways, you have to throw out what Alabama brought to the table against Auburn, even though they were clearly the second best team in that game against Auburn. I personally think Alabama does not deserve to go to the Final Four, even if they beat Georgia, unless it's by significant margin.
Because of their loss?
Texas, because they lost at home to Texas.
Yep.
And Texas's one loss was in the last seconds on a neutral site game against Oklahoma. And Oregon's one loss so far this year was at Washington due to a curious decision by their coach. I don't think Alabama stacks up against these teams, and I don't want to see the SEC dictate everything in a year when the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are better than the SEC top to bottom.
So maybe the winner of this game deserves to be in next year when there are more teams in the playoffs.
That's the problem next year, is that you got a 12-team playoff and all these games don't matter.
Yeah.
Because Alabama and Georgia would already be in, Washington and Oregon would already be in, Florida State would be in even if they lost. I think we're missing the boat that we didn't cap it at 8. 12 is a ridiculous number, but that's just building on to what you said about what's going on with the NCAA.
It's not good.
The Eagles got some bad news. It looks like Gobert will not be able to go. He's listed as doubtful.
Goddard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's 1 week removed.
You said Gobert. Rudy Gobert can't go today.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question.
Can't go either.
Here's a question for you, Chris, because you're a Michigan guy. First half total, Iowa over under a half point. Second half total, Iowa over under a half point. Will Iowa score a touchdown? Is yes, plus 115. This is a 10-2 team. What are your thoughts about that?
I think their strategy, I saw somebody post this, I agree with it, that their strategy should just be to punt the ball every time they get it and just get that safety.
On first down?
And then they get the ball back. And when they get the ball back, punt it back. They don't even run offensive plays, just keep punting it.
God, I like their coach so much too. It's too bad they can't spell offense.
It's an amazing situation.
That has got to be the
I
worst.
just don't really have any words for it. And the Iowa quarterback was 11 out of 28 last week. And, that was against a good Nebraska defense, but Nebraska and Michigan should not be confused in terms of, which team is better and which team isn't better. So I don't know.
Have you ever seen anything like this, truthfully, like from an odds standpoint?
Oh, no. And you're talking about over-unders in this day and age when everything is offense, that Iowa has had 4 over-unders under 30 points, including last week's 24.5. And they didn't go over the total.
I bet the under last week on that.
It is one of the most astounding things. I mean, we've seen service academies with low 30s and stuff like that. And next week's Army-Navy game is going to be around 30. But we have not seen Big Ten football where you have 4 totals in a year that have been 28. Under 30. I mean, there are probably 35 teams in the NCAA that average 30 points a game on their own.
That's incredible.
That totals 28, Ron.
Okay, so under 30, there it is. And and the Army-Navy game has gone under something like 13 of the last 14 years, regardless of the total. So
we need to wrap this up, boys.
Okay,
so final thoughts off NCAA or NFL. What do you got?
Well, my final thoughts is I'm definitely looking forward to the Niners-Philly game because I think it's going to say a lot. This is a chance for the best team in San Francisco to take care of biz on the road at the place where Philadelphia, whose quarterback has not lost to a winning team in 14 straight tries. I mean, it tells you, it's going to say something about both teams. And if Philly keeps this close, which they should, and finds a way to win, then now what are you going to say who should be the top seed and the favorite? Right?
Yeah.
I'm just pleased that they put the Lions on national TV again and they moved New England off the Monday night game coming up.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, enjoy week 13.
Cheers.
Welcome back.
Thank you, everybody.